Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. Immediately following the fights tonight, I did a UFC 279 post-fight live stream. It's roughly an hour and a half long. I go over all the notable fights on the card in detail. I will link that video down below in the description, but I wanted to make a dedicated, condensed video on the main event, Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson. And this was a fight that we were supposed to never get in the UFC. It was originally supposed to be Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev. And I complained about that booking. You know, the main event was announced, I think, in mid-July. And I've been complaining about the card ever since. Ferguson versus Li Jingliang just got announced 3 weeks ago. And thank you so much to the MMA gods that this card got shuffled around because Khamzat Chimaev missed weight. Because if it wasn't, I don't even want to think what we would be talking about right now. So first off, as far as the main event, Diaz versus Ferguson, this was a competitive fight. The first 3 rounds were back and forth. The only real round that I thought was definitive, I thought Ferguson took the 3rd round, but that could still be up for debate. But Ferguson was really chopping the legs of Nate Diaz in that 3rd round. And that was a weird round. Diaz was taunting, turning his back. It was very bizarre. The 2nd round was kind of the same. Was Ferguson kind of chopping the legs a little bit, but Nate was having flurries. So you really could give it to either guy in the 2nd round. 1st round, very, very close as well. Could have given it to either guy. The 4th round, Nate Diaz was winning the 4th round. He was pressing forward on Tony Ferguson, swarming him with combinations. Tony Ferguson shoots in on a takedown, and Nate Diaz immediately guillotines him. And it was a weird position because, honestly, I never thought in a million years, I thought if Diaz won, he would win by decision. I never thought that Tony Ferguson's jiu-jitsu would fail him and he would get submitted. And it was a weird position because when he initially went for the takedown, it didn't seem like he was in the guillotine position. But then it's like Nate Diaz kind of leaned back, locked up the grip, and then Tony Ferguson was done. He didn't even have Tony Ferguson in his full guard. So it was kind of weird, and I never thought that Tony Ferguson would get submitted by Nate Diaz. I picked Tony Ferguson in this fight, but I said, you know, he did take the Li Jingliang fight on 3 weeks' notice, and now he's taking a 5-round fight on 24 hours' notice. When the initial fight he was supposed to have was on 3 weeks' notice. So even though Tony Ferguson is known for his unlimited cardio, you can't really say too much about Tony, I guess, because of the fact that taking a 5-round fight on 3 weeks' notice and making it to the 4th round competitively is a tough ask. But this fight, really depressed me, honestly. I'm much happier that we got this main event over the original main event and the original matchups on the card. But Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson did not look good at all. And Tony Ferguson in particular looked god-awful in this fight. And I've been a defender of Tony Ferguson. He's been fighting nothing but elite guys. He was winning in the Michael Chandler fight before he got starched out cold with that front kick. And I don't want to come off as I'm defending Tony too much because he really did look terrible. He looked slow. The movement wasn't there. The pressure wasn't there. Every time Nate Diaz put the pressure on him, he was like, having this herky-jerky movement, leaning all around, falling all over the place. He was turning his back on Nate Diaz multiple times like he was throwing a spinning technique, but he didn't really even throw the spinning technique. And it was just overall a weird fight. And I get it that Tony looked awful. But at the same time, this was 3 weeks' notice. I blame the UFC for this. Tony Ferguson should have never been fighting Li Jingliang on 3 weeks' notice. It should have never happened. But thank God. Thank you to the MMA gods that the Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson did not happen. I did an official prediction on that fight. Li Jingliang would have flatlined KO Tony Ferguson, and I'm even more confident in that prediction after watching both of their fights. Li Jingliang took on Daniel Rodriguez, a much tougher test, lost via split decision, very close competitive fight. Li Jingliang would have brutalized Tony Ferguson. It would have been tough to watch. I honestly might have cried had Tony Ferguson actually fought Li Jingliang. But he fights Nate Diaz, a much more manageable opponent. I picked him to win this fight. I thought he would win by doctor stoppage. He didn't throw a lot of strikes to the head. He was ripping to the body a decent amount, but he was mainly throwing leg kicks and body kicks. And Nate Diaz, while he got the win, I don't think he looked particularly good either. I don't think his cardio looked that good. The weird taunting, I don't know if it was just because he was trying to have fun in there, but he was like turning his back, leaning against the cage. I think also he wanted a quick break. And Tony Ferguson, I don't know why he did not take advantage of those moments. Nate does a weird thing where he'll kind of play possum for a second or act like he's not fighting. And then the second he thinks he has you off guard, he'll kind of blitz forward and start throwing combinations. Tony Ferguson never once looked like he's just going to try to take advantage of Nate. When Nate started acting weird, leaning up against the fence, Tony never went after him. There was multiple times where Nate was, looking away from Tony. And the old Tony, I feel like, would have really went after Nate Diaz. And, watching Tony tonight, and I get it was a short notice performance, I'm worried about what the future holds, to be honest. This is the first time where I've said Tony Ferguson is just, this performance tonight was dog shit. And I know he made it to the fourth round. I know it was competitive. You could have flip-flopped all three of the first rounds, in my opinion. But to look so slow, he didn't use a variety of attacks. The jiu-jitsu didn't look good. For the little amount of jiu-jitsu that we saw, he gets guillotined basically immediately. He doesn't take advantage of Nate. He has no pressure. Every time Nate moved forward, Tony wasn't countering him. Like, Nate was moving forward and throwing combinations, and Tony Ferguson really had no answers for it. The only thing he really did effectively in this fight was chop the legs. And then you hear Tony, now that I've had time to see some of the post-fight presser from Tony, and then you saw the post-fight press, post-fight interview from Joe Rogan immediately following the fight. He's like, I'm back. Bro, if you think you were back in that fight, you look awful. And against Nate Diaz, who is the most winnable opponent you could have ever asked for. And, he's saying in the presser, he's still on top of the mountain, and he's saying these things like, almost like he still has aspirations of being a champion. Do you know? We've already seen a lot of these guys already do it, but, these top guys in the lightweight division and the welterweight division would brutalize Tony. Li Jingliang, I think, is ranked like 13 or 14 in the welterweight division. He would have brutalized Tony Ferguson, and I hope his delusions don't have him ending up like one of these stories where a fighter just refuses to retire and we got to watch him eat loss after loss after loss. Now, I get it. The UFC is probably going to at least give him one more fight. He took this fight on short notice, 3 weeks notice to save UFC 279. Then he switched his opponent on 24 hours notice. I just don't think there's no way the UFC cuts a legend like Tony Ferguson after those factors. But I honestly don't want to see Tony fight anymore. I think he's going to get one more shot. Depending on who the opponent is, he's probably going to lose. If it's anybody ranked in the top 15 of any division, if he looks anything like he looked tonight, if he would have fought Li Jingliang, that would have been disturbing. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the consequences of all the factors and the fact that he took it on short notice, combination with being KO'd, returning too quickly from the KO. And, then on top of that, fighting at 170 pounds for the first time in a long time and the opponent change. Because Li Jingliang or Nate Diaz are vastly different style matchups. But this was not the same Tony Ferguson. He was very gun shy. There was no pressure. The striking did not look good, especially the hands in general did not look good. And against Nate Diaz, who's on his way out, this is his last fight in the UFC. To lose to Nate Diaz is, it's sad. This fight card, even though I was very excited, and you guys can go watch the videos I made about it, I was very excited that these matchups got changed around. I kind of left with a weird feeling after UFC 279. And as far as Nate Diaz goes, he gets the win. And I know people are going to say, Nate got the win and it was solid. If Nate would have fought Khamzat Chimaev, he would have left in a body bag. It would have been the most vicious beating we would have ever seen. He would have got finished in the first minute, I think. Look what Khamzat Chimaev did to Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland would wash Nate Diaz badly. And Khamzat had absolutely no trouble finishing Kevin Holland early. So thank God Khamzat Chimaev missed weight. I'm even a bigger fan of Khamzat Chimaev now. I know a lot of people are saying they hate him now because he missed weight. I couldn't be more thankful for Khamzat Chimaev to miss weight, and we didn't have to watch Diaz be slaughtered by Chimaev and to watch Ferguson get slaughtered by Li Jingliang. But as far as Nate, I think he's getting out while the getting's good, honestly. He wins against Tony Ferguson. That's the luckiest thing he could have ever gotten, that Khamzat missed weight. He gets a win over Tony Ferguson. And now, he says, oh, I'm going to go dominate another sport. And what he means is he's going to go try to box a YouTuber for millions of dollars. And Nate, honestly, will probably get brutally KO'd by a YouTuber. I hate to say that. And I know a lot of people are going to harass me in the comments and say, no way. But I think Nate's plan in his mind is he's going to go out there, box a YouTuber, win that, come back to the UFC, and have the Conor McGregor trilogy for a lot of money. And really, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that's Nate's plan. Nate is getting up there in age. The skills have been declining for years. This is only his second win since he defeated Conor McGregor all the way back at UFC 196. So from UFC 196 to UFC 279, he has 2 total wins in 6 years. The skills have regressed. Tony Ferguson's a shell of himself in this fight, and it was competitive. And what I think is going to probably happen to Nate, he's going to go outside the UFC, he's going to sign up for this boxing match, he's going to get brutally KO'd, and the UFC will not re-sign him. If he goes out there and loses to a YouTube boxer, the UFC would not re-sign him even for a Conor McGregor trilogy, because the UFC would not want to risk Nate Diaz going out, losing to that guy, the YouTube boxer, and then coming back and potentially beating Conor McGregor in a trilogy. And I've been a guy who said, I picked Nate Diaz in both the original Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor fights. I thought Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor in the rematch at UFC. I think it was 202. But at this point, it's 6 years ago. I think Conor McGregor, even though he's regressed himself, I think Conor would probably starch Nate Diaz in a trilogy at this point. And I would not have said that 2 days ago. I would not have said that 24 hours ago. Nate just looks slow. The stamina doesn't look as great as it once was. Maybe he didn't prepare for Khamzat Chimaev. Maybe he was prepared to just quit in there, like Nick Diaz did against Robbie Lawler. He didn't look to be in the greatest shape. The hands didn't look all that great. They were sloppy. A lot of them were just brushing off the guard of Tony. He cut Tony up, and I think in the second round, with a punch, but the punches weren't landing that great. Nothing really looked good in this fight. I just left, feeling weird. I'm still happy that we got Diaz Ferguson, but I can't help but wonder how this fight would have looked like back in 2016 or 2017. And, I'm just scared. I'm happy for Nate that he gets the win. The UFC doesn't get to screw him, on his way out the door, because this is the last fight on his contract. But I'm worried about Tony Ferguson. Honestly, the way he's talking, some of the comments I've heard him make after this fight, years ago, he went on a 12-fight win streak, which is just talked about. That is absolutely insane in the lightweight division. This is now 5 in a row. Is he aiming for a 12-fight losing streak on the back end of that? Because Justin Gaethje arguably took his soul, but still one of the best in the world. Then he goes out there, he loses to Charles Oliveira, gets out-grappled in a nasty armbar, and that fight doesn't tap. Then he loses to Beneil, he's in a nasty knee bar, and that fight doesn't tap. Then he gets flatlined by Chandler in a fight that he looked good. He's fighting all killers. But now he's fighting a step back in competition against Nate Diaz, and he gets guillotined. And he just didn't look good in this fight. There's nothing that I can really point to and say, yeah, Tony really did this well. After the Michael Chandler fight, that was a heartbreaker because Tony looked good in the first round. I don't know if it's the KO that's done it to him. I don't know if it's because of the short notice. A lot of people keep mentioning that he went to Greg Jackson's, but I heard in an interview somewhere, I can't remember who said it, that Tony was only there for like a week or two. Well, then again, it's only a 3-week camp, honestly. So I think we'll probably at least see him one more time in the UFC, and then maybe if he loses again, the UFC is going to cut him. But thank God we didn't have to watch him versus Li Jingliang. Thank God we didn't have to watch Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev. And Nate Diaz, the most shocking thing about this fight, Nate Diaz did not bleed against Tony Ferguson. I am shocked that happened. Tony Ferguson bled quite a bit from his shin as well as his eye. But Nate Diaz is not cut at all. I mean, Tony only landed like a couple strikes to the head this whole fight. And Nate was walking him down, landing some good combinations. A lot of them were missing, but he was landing some decent shots on Tony. And that's just not the same Tony. I mean, he was pinned up against the fence, eating combinations, and he was like turning his back and sprinting away. It just wasn't a good look. I hope that Tony Ferguson gets a winnable fight in his next fight if he chooses to return wins that fight, and then retires. I don't want to see him fight anymore. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.